ever been absolutely stuck in traffic, just watching someone else, effortlessly merge into the fast lane and just speed away?
Oh, all the time.
And you're sitting there thinking, how? Why are they so lucky? Maybe it's not traffic for you. Maybe it's in your career.
Mm-hmm.
You see a colleague who, yeah, they work hard, sure, but they aren't crushing themselves with 80-hour weeks. And yet they always seem to be in the right meeting.
They get the perfect recommendation.
Opportunities just land in their lap like cosmic confetti or something. It's infuriating.
And this is exactly where that frustration starts to bubble up. We see other people, or maybe we even see it in ourselves, who are meticulous, tireless, utterly dedicated to their craft.
Right.
But they're constantly running into, unexpected market collapses or tech shifts or just sheer consistent bad timing.
They're excellent swimmers, but the current is always against them.
Exactly. And it forces you to ask this really fundamental question about success, which is luck truly this random, fickle, sort of capricious force?
Or is it actually a hidden truth of life? An unspoken rule that you can learn to master and, build into your life?
And that's our deep dive today.
That is the central, unavoidable question. We've been handed this dense stack of sources from ancient philosophy to, modern strategic analysis that explore exactly how we can stop being victims of chance and start becoming, quite literally, architects of our own fortune.
And we're going to trace this idea through two wildly different ancient philosophies. They're separated by more than 1,000 years.
1,000 years. One is focused intensely on internal peace.
And the other is all about external power.
And from these two, we're going to build what we're calling the architecture of agency.
This is the single framework that allows you to engineer your own luck. And the entire mission really hinges on one foundational aphorism. A quote, so simple it has become the absolute bedrock of modern motivational speech.
And corporate success strategies, for sure.
Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately, because we have to get to the very first shocking detail in the source material. We've always attributed that phrase, with all its, simple profundity, to the great Roman Stoic philosopher, Seneca.
It sounds like something he would say. It sounds like it's pulled straight from his letters.
It does. It places the responsibility for fortune squarely on the individual. But the attribution is messy. And the history is this fascinating study in how wisdom sort of evolves.
It's a classic case of philosophical misattribution. While Seneca, the wealthy Roman statesman, playwright, philosopher, he's widely credited, especially since the late 20th century.
Right.
Our sources show this is far from settled fact. The trail of ownership is just really convoluted.
We see the saying popping up in recent history attributed to several different people. There's the former American football coach, Darrell K. Royal.
And even, get this, a mid-century insurance salesman and motivational speaker named Elmer G. Letterman.
It's highly, highly unlikely that either of those gentlemen actually originated the core concept. But the fact that they used it shows how deeply ingrained this idea of, engineered luck is in our culture.
The real nugget, though, the real context, takes us much further back, or at least further back than Seneca's exact phrasing. If you really dig into the archives, an earlier, unattributed version appeared in an American periodical.
What was it called?
The Youth's Companion magazine, all the way back in 1912.
Wow. And the wording there is so crucial. It didn't say luck is the meeting of the two.
No, it was more nuanced. It said, he is lucky who realizes that luck is the point where preparation meets opportunity.
See, that tiny little shift adds an entire layer of agency. It suggests the true skill isn't just preparing, but the realization.
The mental acuity. The awareness to recognize the intersection when it actually happens.
And just to really dismantle the popular story, Seneca himself, the guy who supposedly said it, he actually never uses the word luck fortuna in precisely this way. He talks a lot about preparing for hardship, but the closest quote is usually traced to a passage where he might have been quoting his friend Demetrius the Cynic.
So what we're dealing with is a kind of philosophical Frankenstein's monster.
That's a great way to put it.
It's this perfect, resonant quote, but it's been stitched together over centuries and attributed to whoever most championed preparation and intentionality in their time.
It's a concept that transcends any single author.
Precisely. So whether it was a Roman sage or a magazine editor in 1912, the blueprint is undeniable. Let's just dedicate this whole section to deconstructing the mechanics of that blueprint.
Yeah.
Preparation meets opportunity.
This is the foundation we have to build on. So let's break down the components. First up, we have preparation.
Right.
Using the language from the sources, this is the endogenous component.
Endogenous, meaning it's the internal world. It's the sphere of activity over which we, as individuals, have absolute control.
And that encompasses the studying, the practice.
The late nights honing your skills, the active involvement in similar fields that just builds that intellectual muscle memory. It's all the time you spend building capability when the spotlight is absolutely nowhere near you.
It's the hours you put in when everyone else is, sleeping or scrolling or just distracted. The sources give us that powerful analogy of Stephen King's early career.
Right. Think about what he was facing. Rejection after rejection from book publishers.
And that rejection, the opinions and decisions of these external gatekeepers, that is a completely uncontrollable exogenous force.
But King focused entirely on the endogenous. His writing, his discipline, his commitment to just honing his craft, his preparation was so robust that when that external element, the opportunity for publication, finally showed up,
he wasn't scrambling to figure out how to write a good novel.
He was ready. He was ready to execute at a world-class level. And that preparation is why he didn't just get lucky once. He sustained an entire career of these successful lucky breaks.
So that's preparation. Then you have the other half, opportunity. This is the exogenous component. It happens entirely from the outside world.
It could be an economic upturn, a key person retiring, a job posting you just happen to see,
or just an unexpected handshake at an industry event.
And here's the brutal truth of this two-part equation. You have little to no control over when or where opportunity shows up.
Right. You can't force a competitor to sell their business. You can't compel the market to shift in your favor tomorrow.
And you definitely can't make the one person you need to meet just happen to sit down next to you on a flight.
So, if preparation is the skill, opportunity really is the cosmic roll of the dice. But the sources suggest that the contemporary view has moved beyond this simple duality.
It has. The consensus now is that luck is a product of design, not chance. The preparation part has to be constantly refined.
You see this echoed in older quotes too, right?
Absolutely. Like Stephen Leacock's observation.
I am a great believer in luck, and I find the harder I work, the more I have of it.
A classic. It acknowledges that positive correlation between effort and what we perceive as luck. But modern analysis refines that original formula into a four-part equation.
Okay, so this is where we move from ancient wisdom into a full blueprint. Luck now requires the two originals, preparation and opportunity, but also two more dynamic components.
Energetic pursuit and adaptability.
Let's talk about energetic pursuit.
This is so critical. Because why bother having the most advanced preparation in the world if you lack the will or the energy to mobilize when the moment actually arrives?
Right.
Energetic pursuit is that active, sometimes even aggressive step of opening the door when opportunity knocks. It's the courage to apply for that stretch job or cold email the executive.
And then adaptability is the key to sustaining that momentum. The opportunity you prepared for perfectly. Let's say it's securing a venture capital pitch.
Right.
It might suddenly demand a completely different type of presentation or a pivot in your product because of some external market change you couldn't have seen coming.
And if you're rigid, if your preparation only focused on one specific scenario, you will miss that opportunity even while you're standing right in front of it.
This leads us right to the pitfalls of not preparing enough, which we so often disguise as bad luck.
Oh, this is a huge psychological trap. We have this really powerful, relatable anecdote in the sources that illustrates it perfectly. A listener once talked about failing an extremely important professional certification exam.
Okay.
And they blamed it entirely on bad luck.
That is the classic externalization of failure. So what were the specific excuses they made?
They complained that the questions were overly focused on topics they thought were unlikely to be covered.
Ah, the unlikely topics.
Exactly. And that the administrative process or the testing environment created terrible timing. Basically, they blamed the test administrators, the people who wrote the questions, and the cosmos itself.
But I'm guessing some self-reflection told a different story.
A much, much more telling story. In hindsight, they admitted their preparation just wasn't thorough.
So they had skipped those chapters.
They had skipped those exact chapters they deemed unlikely because they thought their time was better spent cramming for the expected topics. Their preparation was strategically incomplete.
So their failure wasn't random misfortune. It was a direct result of a lack of thorough preparation for the entire scope of the opportunity.
This is where Seneca's quote, or whoever's quoted is, encourages that true ownership. The realization that their bad luck was engineered by their own decision to skip those chapters forced them to internalize the outcome.
So luck in this context is engineered by being ready for every eventuality, not just the comfortable or the expected ones.
That recognition that the outcome was within their sphere of influence, even if that influence was only 90%, is the very first step toward building true agency.
And speaking of moving the focus of control inward, we have to build the bedrock of our architecture now.
And that means turning to the ultimate philosophy of inner strength, Stoicism.
This is where the architecture of agency truly begins to take shape. Before we can even think about building external defenses, we have to secure the internal fortress.
And Stoicism provides that emotional stability. It's like the internal operating system that lets us pursue opportunities without being swept away by fear or distraction or the inevitable failure that comes with chasing big goals.
And the foundational concept here, championed most clearly by the ex-slave philosopher Epictetus, is what?
The dichotomy of control. This is not just some quaint idea, it is the single most important and demanding practice in the entire philosophy. The sources are very clear on that.
It sounds so simple on the surface. Some things are within our power and others are not.
Right.
But I find that in the complexity of modern life, those lines get so hopelessly blurred. We're constantly pressured by media, by social structures, to worry about things we can't fundamentally change.
And that blurring, according to Epictetus, is the primary source of modern suffering. He breaks down these spheres with absolute, almost ruthless clarity in his Enchiridion. We have to define these two realms precisely.
Let's start with the controllable sphere. What are the elements that are free, unhindered, and unobstructed that a Stoic is supposed to focus on?
These are purely internal. They are our opinion, our choice, our desire, our aversion, our moral will, our reasoned choice.
So in short.
In summation, whatever are our own actions. These are the things over which we have absolute, unassailable 100% sovereignty.
No tyrant, no market crash, no natural disaster can take those away from you.
Exactly. And that is so powerful because it isolates the self from the chaotic external world.
But then there's the massive, frightening, uncontrollable sphere. And this is everything external, the things that are weak, slavish, constrained, not our own.
This is a huge category that includes everything from the most intimate to the most global. It includes our physical body. It's going to get sick. It's going to age. It might get injured.
Right.
It includes our property, our reputation, our social status.
The actions or opinions of other people, your spouse, your boss, that anonymous commenter online.
All of it. And all external events, like economic recessions, traffic jams, or even the weather.
And the Stoic warning here is not gentle. Epictetus makes it really clear that suffering is the direct result of two specific errors.
What are they?
1, trying to control what is fundamentally uncontrollable, or 2, neglecting what is entirely within our power.
And the goal of recognizing this dichotomy is just clarity, tranquility, and emotional freedom. If you really internalize this, the time you spend raging at a delayed flight is instantly recognized as time and energy wasted on the uncontrollable.
Whereas time spent honing your skills is recognized as time spent building the only thing that truly matters.
Your competence in your character, it effectively acts as a filter. It reduces this overwhelming to-do list of modern anxiety down to one single manageable item. Manage your own mind and your judgments about external events.
Marcus Aurelius, later on, he reinforced this so beautifully. He said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength."
That clarity builds resilience. It's what prevents a person from collapsing when the external chaos finally hits.
Now, you said the dichotomy of control is ruthless in its clarity, but I know the sources discuss a modern challenge to this strict separation.
The trichotomy debate.
Right. It acknowledges that modern life feels like it has this gray area of partial control.
This is a modern refinement, proposed by contemporary thinkers like William Irvine. It seeks to make Stoicism a little more palatable for really goal-oriented people.
How so?
It acknowledges that sometimes we can significantly influence an outcome, even if we can't guarantee it.
Okay, give us an example of that partial control.
A classic one is competitive sports. Let's say you set a goal to win a tennis match.
Okay.
The win itself is uncontrollable. Depends on your opponent's performance, the weather, the referee's calls. a million things.
But putting in immense effort, training rigorously, studying your opponent, that massively increases your chances of victory.
Exactly. The effort is 100% controllable, but the result is not. The modern view argues that this effort falls into that third gray area of partial control.
But doesn't the traditional Stoic position see that gray area as kind of dangerous? If you achieve a 90% chance of victory through effort, and then you lose because of that 10% external factor, you still suffer.
That's the traditional counterargument, and it is pragmatic and highly demanding. The traditional Stoic would say if an outcome depends on any external factor, even a tiny 1% chance, it is not truly within your control.
And why is that so important?
Because that strict, unyielding dichotomy helps the practitioner avoid false hope. Hope tied to external outcomes is, by definition, precarious. Epictetus would argue, your effort is yours, but the result belongs to fate, or the gods, or just the random chaos of the world.
You're just setting yourself up for emotional harm if you claim ownership over that external result.
So whether we follow a strict dichotomy or the partial trichotomy, the practical application is what really matters for building agency. How do the Stoics actually use these internal techniques to prepare for external chaos, to build those mental dams we talked about earlier?
They employ these powerful, consistent psychological exercises. The first key technique is goal internalization.
This is the art of radically shifting your focus from uncontrollable external results to controllable internal efforts.
So instead of being outcome dependent, you become effort dependent.
Exactly. Instead of setting a goal to win the multi-million-dollar contract, the Stoic sets the goal to prepare the best presentation possible, negotiate with integrity, and execute my follow-up strategy flawlessly.
The sources emphasize that this technique makes the individual proof against harm.
It does, because even if they lose the contract to a competitor's lower bid, a totally external event, they remain satisfied and tranquil. Why? Because they achieved 100% of their true internal goal.
This frees up so much mental bandwidth. You're no longer spending energy worrying about the 50% you don't control. You focus all of it on optimizing the 50% you do.
What's the second big technique?
That would be the reserve clause. The Stoics recognize that the fear of failure, which stems from a lack of control over outcomes, often prevents people from even acting at all. The reserve clause is their solution to this paralysis.
How does that work psychologically?
Well, when a Stoic takes action, they mentally add a caveat, a little contingency plan, if you will, to their intention.
Like what?
They might say, I intend to secure this promotion, fate permitting, or I will start this business, the gods willing.
So it's a psychological strategy that inoculates them against emotional distress.
Yes. By acknowledging the uncertainty and unpredictability of external events right up front, they've already planned for the possibility of failure. They're prepared for the rain before the first drop even falls.
That turns a potential disaster into a forecast you've already mentally processed. You're not devastated, you just adjust your sails.
And this isn't just theory for philosophers in robes, right? The sources show how this ancient wisdom is being applied, maybe unknowingly, in these hyper-competitive modern fields.
It's astonishingly direct. We see an NFL executive, Michael Lombardi, who served in these pivotal roles with powerhouse teams and mentored under legends like Bill Walsh and Bill Belichick.
Right.
He directly advocated for Stoic principles in professional football. He recognized that in pro sports, people from the outside, the media, the critics, the fans, they constantly create doubt and noise.
And the players have to learn how to not let other people control their thoughts and emotions. That's pure Stoic practice.
Yeah, absolutely. The application by coaches like Bill Belichick and Nick Saban is almost a textbook demonstration of goal internalization and the dichotomy of control.
Belichick's famous mantra, right, do your job.
Do your job. It's this concise command to ignore all the external noise. The score, the media narrative, the opponent's trash talk, a questionable call from the ref.
And just focus solely on the single task, the controllable action in that one moment.
It forces the player right back into their controllable sphere. They can't control if the opponent makes some great catch, but they can control their own footwork and their coverage.
Saban's entire philosophy of the process is also basically a long-form premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils.
It's about preparing athletes for every possible game scenario, forcing them to mentally practice how they'll react to external chaos, a sudden turnover, a bad penalty, a shift in momentum.
So when these inevitable misfortunes happen, they never feel like luck is against them.
Because they already trained for the disaster.
So the Stoic foundation is our internal operating system. It prepares the mind for chaos. It ensures resilience and tranquility. But if we stop there, we're just tranquil observers. We're not active shapers of fortune.
Right, we need a system for external engagement. And now we have to brace ourselves for a bit of a philosophical whiplash.
Okay.
Because if Stoicism is the quiet, internally focused citadel built for tranquility and virtue, our next philosophy, Machiavellianism, is the strategic, outward-facing fortress built for power, political maneuvering, and domination.
We are moving from Epictetus to Machiavelli.
From a focus on moral perfection to a focus on practical effectiveness.
And this contrast is what makes the final synthesis so powerful. Machiavelli and the Stoics, separated by over a millennium, are both wrestling with the same core problem. How do you master the uncertainty of a chaotic world?
But their solutions are diametrically opposed. Machiavelli's philosophy, particularly in The Prince, is pragmatic, it's cold, and it's entirely focused on the preservation and success of the leader.
He believed that the effective leader must prioritize results over traditional morality. He has that infamous statement.
But it's better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both.
That's consequentialism at its extreme. The ends must justify the means, which is a concept completely antithetical to a Stoic like Marcus Aurelius, who valued justice and courage above all else.
The Machiavellian ruler is operating entirely in the realm of realpolitik. It's a philosophy of political strategy where survival and success are paramount.
The Stoic seeks tranquility, the Machiavellian seeks power.
The leader, Machiavelli argued, must be ready not to be virtuous and to make use of this or not according to need. So to really grasp his solution to luck, we have to understand his two core concepts: fortuna, luck or chance, and virtu, strategic skill.
Okay, let's start with fortuna. We usually translate this as fortune or luck. But Machiavelli, he lived through the brutal, fragmented, constantly warring city-states of Renaissance Italy. He personally experienced state-mandated torture and exile.
So he viewed the world very differently than the ancients did.
Exactly. For Machiavelli, Fortuna was not some benign goddess spinning a wheel. She was terrifying.
He called her a malignant force, a rigid source of chaos, suffering, and misery. Fortuna symbolizes temporal instability, contingency, volatility. It's the entirely uncontrollable external world that can just undo any human plan at any moment.
And here's the sobering statistic he gives us in chapter 25 of The Prince. He acknowledges that Fortuna controls about half of all human actions.
Half. That means no matter how smart or how dedicated you are, 50% of your life's outcome is subject to forces totally beyond your control.
He illustrates this with one of the most famous analogies in political philosophy.
The river.
The onrushing, destructive river. He says when this river is angry, it floods plains, it overturns everything indiscriminately, and nowhere can its fury be entirely repelled.
That is the raw, violent nature of external, uncontrolled chaos. The leader who ignores this 50% is guaranteed to perish when the flood finally arrives.
So if the river controls half of everything, how does a leader combat a force that seems so overwhelming?
That is the role of virtu. And we have to stress this again. This has nothing to do with moral rectitude.
Nothing at all.
Absolutely nothing. Machiavellian virtu is the counteracting strategic skill you use to impose human order on natural or political chaos. The sources define it as boldness, cunning, manliness, strategic flexibility, ability.
And the willingness to be ruthless when survival demands it.
It's the strength of will to oppose chance circumstances and to seize opportunities. So if Fortuna is the flooding river,
Virtu is the skill of building dams and dikes.
Precisely. Machiavelli argues that the prudent leader, the person of virtue, builds these metaphorical dams and dikes during the calm times.
That's proactive, strategic, external preparation.
To resist, withstand, or even direct the river when it finally floods. The ruler who relies entirely on the favor of Fortuna comes to inevitable ruin, as circumstances vary wildly. Virtu allows the prince to mitigate the damaging results of chance.
And to capitalize on any slight advantage it might offer.
Which leads to a critical question. If the goal is power, and you're acknowledging that 50% is uncontrollable Fortuna, why isn't the Machiavellian just living in constant high-stress paranoia?
Yeah, it contrasts so sharply with the Stoic tranquility we just discussed.
And that is the essential tension we have to address. And it lies in the concept of flexibility. True virtue requires a spirit disposed to change. and the ability to adapt your behavior instantly when the external situation shifts.
Machiavelli noted that leaders often fail not because they're inherently incompetent,
But because they are unable to deviate from what nature or habit inclines them to do.
So a leader who succeeded for 10 years by being cautious and meticulous will just continue that behavior even when the market suddenly demands bold, impetuous risk-taking.
And that rigidity leads to their demise as the winds of fortune shift. The person of virtue is emotionally detached enough from their previous strategies to just throw them out when a new strategy is required.
Machiavelli famously concludes that it's better to be impetuous and bold than cautious.
Because Fortuna, the external chaos, allows herself to be mastered by the audacious. It's a philosophy of proactive, forceful engagement with the world.
It's the ultimate external focus. The Stoic says, I control my reaction.
The Machiavellian says, I control the circumstances.
And that is the point where these two systems really meet their philosophical boundaries. The Stoic builds the internal citadel, ready to accept the outcome.
The Machiavellian builds the external dikes, determined to impose their will on the outcome.
So we have these two profound, fully formed systems. Stoicism, telling us to build an internal citadel and accept external outcomes for tranquility and resilience.
And Machiavellianism, telling us to strategically prepare and impose our will on the external world for power and survival.
So now, for the real mission of this deep dive, how do we combine these seemingly opposing philosophies into a single functional architecture of agency for the modern individual?
The very first step is to reiterate their surprising shared value: preparation.
Right.
Despite their drastically different ultimate goals, inner peace versus outer power, both Epictetus and Machiavelli agree on the absolute necessity of preparation.
And Seneca's quote, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. It serves as the perfect philosophical bridge. Preparation is the one thing they both insist on."
Which means the synthesis has to be dual-layered. The Stoic must be internally ready for failure.
And the Machiavellian must be externally ready for opportunity.
Exactly. We can even map the responsibilities. We can view Stoicism as providing the internal operating system, the OS.
I like that.
It dictates our ethical choices, it manages our emotional reactions to inevitable failures and setbacks, and it defines our intentions and moral will. It's the stability software.
And Machiavellianism provides the external foresight. It gives us the pragmatic analysis we need to understand competitive realities, to anticipate risks, and to strategically position ourselves or our organizations in the world.
It's the risk analysis and structural engineering component.
This dual architecture of agency is what modern high performers instinctively use. Just think about a corporate leader. The Stoic element ensures they control their effort and maintain integrity in their decision-making.
So that even if a business deal collapses, their reputation, which is a result of their own actions, is protected.
Exactly. While the Machiavellian element ensures they build organizational dikes.
What does that look like in a business context?
Maintaining excessive financial reserves, diversifying supply chains so you're not reliant on one unpredictable source, or crafting robust legal protections.
All to protect the company when the river of Fortuna inevitably overflows. The Stoic keeps the leader calm, the Machiavellian keeps the enterprise solvent.
That foresight, that practical virtue, lets leaders mitigate existential risks and even turn inherent weaknesses into strategic advantages.
Like the Richard Branson example in the sources. His challenge was dyslexia, an internal cognitive weakness. That's a form of internal Fortuna, something he couldn't control.
But his virtue was recognizing that weakness and developing external strategies to overcome it. He delegated reading-heavy tasks, he focused on verbal communication, and he surrounded himself with people who excelled in the areas where he struggled.
He transformed an internal constraint into an organizational imperative, and that became his lucky opportunity to build an empire.
The Machiavellian mindset forces the individual to recognize the reality of the zero-sum game in certain high-stakes environments, and to build protective structures in anticipation of competitive aggression or market volatility.
And the Stoic mindset is what keeps that leader resilient and grounded when those external structures, those careful plans, eventually fail anyway.
But let's address the core tension here, because we can't just slap these two philosophies together without noting the friction.
There's a lot of friction.
The sources discuss the philosophical critique of Machiavellianism. If we're using Stoicism for our private, internal life and Machiavellianism for our external, professional life, doesn't that require a constant, exhausting mental switch? And doesn't it risk eroding our integrity?
That is the essential danger. The critique of Machiavellianism is that it's an extreme pragmatism that, if you apply it in your private life, can render the area uninhabitable.
A constant focus on manipulation and controlling external outcomes that has to require enormous psychological effort. And it seems ultimately unstable.
The Stoics would argue that the uncontrollable forces of fate, that 50% that even Machiavelli acknowledged, can undo all of that complex, exhausting Machiavellian work overnight.
So the Machiavellian is constantly exhausting himself, trying to build bigger and better dams to force the river to comply, while the Stoic is focused on building a mind so robust it can survive the flood, even if the dams inevitably break.
That's the tension. And the solution isn't to choose one over the other, but to integrate their core function. Stoicism defines the quality of your preparation, your character, your effort, your integrity.
While Machiavellianism defines the quantity and the strategy of your preparation, the dikes, the reserves, the foresight.
Which brings us to the final, unifying framework, the architecture of agency. This is the ultimate unspoken rule of success.
And the architecture demands a two-pronged approach. You absolutely control your preparation.
This is the Stoic focus on internal effort, character, cultivating virtues like courage, justice, wisdom. This builds your internal citadel.
Then you use foresight. This is the Machiavellian analysis. You use it to anticipate and strategically prepare for the 50% of the world you cannot control. You build the external dikes.
And when those two intersect, when your internal dams of cultivated skill, character, and gritty effort meet an external flood of chance, that is the moment the world labels luck.
It's the predictable result of a prepared mind encountering a favorable external chance. The outcome isn't random. It's engineered.
The person of virtue does not wait passively for the goddess to smile. They engineer their environment and their mind to be ready for rain, regardless of when the storm actually hits.
This means the architecture of agency is a dynamic, dual structure. One half is built in the world through strategy and foresight.
And the other half is built in the mind through reason, discipline, and virtue. It's about being uncompromisingly prepared for both the internal reality of your own choices and the external reality of chaos.
This deep dive has shown us that true mastery isn't about being perfectly good, nor is it about being ruthlessly powerful. It's about being uncompromisingly prepared for both sides of reality.
Fusing that inner clarity with outer strategy. You control the preparation, you manage the intersection. And we should leave you with one final, deeply Stoic thought from Seneca that really sums up this entire conversation on the purpose of preparation.
What's that?
Seneca noted that disaster is virtue's opportunity. The ultimate test of your preparation, the true metric of your virtue, isn't when things go perfectly right and the sun is shining.
The real test is when the river floods.
If the dams hold, if you survive the chaos, if you adapt to the changing landscape without losing your character, then you have proven your preparation was sufficient.
And if the flood washes everything away?
You've learned exactly where you need to build next. Either way, you gain valuable knowledge, and you never ever blame luck.
And knowledge, in the end, is useless unless it's tested in the crucible of reality.
So now that you've completed this deep dive and metaphorically built your own philosophical dikes, the final rule of mastery is this. You can't leave without leaving a mark. Don't let this knowledge be washed away by the next wave of distraction. Go deeper. If this discussion on virtue and fortuna sparked a specific thought, maybe an instance where you thought you were unlucky but now realize you were just unprepared, channel that virtue and comment below.
And if you value this kind of preparation, show us your good fortuna by hitting that like button. And if you want to make sure you are fully ready for the next opportunity, subscribe and ring the notification bell.